No, I can't remember.
Shalom.
Shalom. Awesome.
This is Waco Israel Ministries. We do thank and praise the Most High. Ahayah,
Tony, open that light.
bahashem, Yashayah,
please.
Barak, for this opportunity, to be on again.
Thank you.
In front of you, another lesson, Bible study. We've been in a series over the last, I don't know,
2 weeks.
3, not a month.
No.
About 3.
2 weeks.
2.5 weeks.
Yeah, something like that. It's all right. We just started, but it's good. It's a long series.
Exposing the roots of the Christian religion.
Pagan Christianity.
Get this book, read it for yourself, and study. Pagan Christianity. I want to show you the chapter that we're going to start. The pastors next. We're going to break into this today. Finally, we have learned many deep revelations about the origins of many of our practices in Christendom today. Okay? We have also learned that we have been taught to read our modern practices of religion into the Bible, such as going to church. You will never see in the Bible where it says go to church.
Come on.
And church and assembly, the church and the modern idea of church and the Israelite concept of an assembly is totally different conceptually. It's not the same thing.
That's right.
You can't go somewhere, first of all, that you are already. I'll say that again. You can't go somewhere that you are already. You are the church. The church is not a place. It's a people. It's Israel and those who follow the example of Christ. That's the church. The church is not an institution. The church is not an organization. That's not to say that the Most High doesn't have organized rules of ways how to follow Him, worship Him, and operate.
Oh yeah.
When you're in His presence. But all in all, the whole idea of institutional religion is a man-made concept. That's why it's so controlling when you go into there, because it was created by people, right? That's why you feel controlled when you go into the church. You feel like you're part of a system.
That's right.
Not a family, but more of a system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, that from the beginning of the creation, God created man to relate to Him, to understand reality, to worship Him. He created Adam. He gave Adam laws, statutes, and commandments, right? Now, this was before religion. This was before any man-made idea of worshiping God. God dealt with man. The Most High dealt with us personally, one-on-one, the way He wanted to originally. He didn't need a church. He didn't need an institution. He didn't need a pastor.
That's right.
He didn't need any of the things that we associate with church today or religion today. He dealt with us personally, one-on-one. Even the idea of the tabernacle. Tabernacle means a dwelling place or to dwell with in the Hebrew language or in the Greek. It means a place or to dwell with. So God has always wanted to dwell with people, not in a place or a building, but in people.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we understand that God, the Most High, created the earth. He spoke everything into existence. Right? Let's go to let's go to Genesis. Genesis 1:26 and 27.
Okay, we're going into the book of beginnings, Genesis 26, chapter 1, verse 26 and 27. You all have it? And the Most High said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air.
So, the Most High said, let us make man in our image. Now, we're going to see what that means in the Bible, image. But image basically is a two-part concept. It's God made us in his physical image, and God also made us in his spiritual or in his God made man or Adam to look like him. God is black. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
God also made people in general in his physical or moral image or in his spiritual image to connect with him. Okay. So that idea of image is a twofold idea concept. Okay. So God made man in his image. Let us make man in our image and after our likeness, and let him have dominion over the beasts of the field, the birds of the air, and the fish of the sea. So now we get a picture of creation, right? That God created before man. He created beasts of the field, birds of the air, and fish. Sea life, air life, and earth life. Okay, so man would have to be created in a class above all those things to have dominion over those things, because in the world today, children are being taught that we are the same as animals.
Huh.
You know, people are taught science and evolution, right? Well, the Bible denies that in the first chapter of the Bible. God clearly sets up classes, dividing everything and putting it in its own place.
Proper order, that's right.
Okay? So we are not like animals. We are not like fish. We are not like birds. Okay? Or cattle. We are superior to them. That is why you don't get morally outraged when you see a lion kill an animal, because we understand that animals kill animals. It's natural. It's It's part of what they are. It's how they operate. But when we kill each other, there's a sense of robbery. Why? Because we're not supposed to take people's lives. We don't have that ability. Not that we don't have that ability. We're not supposed to operate in it. Right?
Absolutely.
We're not supposed to kill one another. We're not supposed to extinguish life. We're supposed to help life continue. Right?
It's going away.
Right?
Yeah.
The next verse says,
So God created man in his image, his own image,
no, he created him after the image of an animal.
his own image, in the image of
No, in the image of a fish.
the image of
No, in the image of an ape.
created he him.
So God did not make us in the image of animals.
That's right.
Now, that doesn't mean we don't act like animals sometimes, but we are not animals. Right? God made us to communicate or to act or to operate as he operates, right? He made man and woman to operate the way he thinks, reasons, feels, morals, everything. We are created. Our minds are fashioned in a way where they will always operate the same way. They will understand reality.
Male and female created he them.
Go to the Apocrypha. We're going to get through this lesson very quickly. Go to Sirach.
Okay.
Dad?
Yeah.
Sirach.
Right.
Sirach, the 17th chapter, the 3rd verse. And start reading at the 3rd verse.
That's after Ezra's, right?
17:3.
It's after Wisdom. Oh, Ecclesiastes. Okay. 17:3. Okay, man, when you get it, you can read. I'll read this. Okay, 17. All right. Sirach is Ecclesiasticus. Chapter.
Get the Apocrypha as well. Or you can just download a 1611 KJV Bible.
Uh-huh.
17.
Sirach 17 verse 3, Dad.
Everybody have it?
Okay, go ahead.
Ready? 17:3. He endued them with strength by themselves and made them according to his image, and put the fear of man upon all flesh, and gave him dominion over beasts and fowls.
So again, we're getting a better explanation of Genesis 1:26 and 27.
That's right.
So Sirach is giving us a bigger picture. So God gave Adam his spirit, and God gave Adam the ability to have power over creation. So for Adam to have that power, he would have to be created else. So that is why it is a sin to worship anything else other than God, because God didn't make creation or anything in it to be worshipped. Read.
Okay. They received the use of the 5 operations of the Most High, and in the 6th place, he imparted them understanding. And in the 7th, speech and interpreter of the congregations, cognitions, their council.
Wait a minute.
Oh.
Now this is gonna
Okay.
start breaking
Can I skip
down.
something? Oh, okay.
Read that verse again, Dad, because that's
5, right, Mary?
verse
They
5.
received the use of their 5 operations.
Now,
most-
what are 5 the operations? Now, Sirach is about to break down the way the brain, the mind, and the spirit operate, the brain. He's going to start describing how our brains operate. So, for us to understand how our brains operate, our brains must be created in such a way where they will always operate the same. Right? They will never operate differently. So this is how you know God made us. Because our brains always work the same. They will never operate differently.
Go ahead, Josh.
The Lord.
Wait, they received
The use of the 5 operations
of the Most High.
In the 6th place, he
And-
imparted them understanding.
What is understanding? Understanding is basic knowledge of reality. How things ought to be and should be. Not how they always should be or will be, but how things basically should work. Right? Read.
And in the 7th speech.
So God gave us the ability to speak, to connect, to talk to Him.
Interpret or the cognition thereof.
Now, what is cognitions? Cognitions is consciousness.
Cognitions.
Okay? Cognitions comes from a Latin word which means with or con, and science or science or conscience or with science. So God created science. Okay? Man corrupted it when the fallen angels came down. God invented science. God invented everything. Okay? He gave us conscience or conscience, which is a construct of a Latin term with science or with knowledge. So God gave us conscience or knowledge of reality, like I just said. God gave us basically a roadmap in our minds of how reality should be. Not how it always will be, but how it basically should be. There shouldn't be killing. There shouldn't be rape. There shouldn't be murder. There shouldn't be anything immoral, pretty much. Everything should be work out perfectly. Right? Verse 6.
Counsel and a tongue and eyes, ears, and a heart gave he them to understand.
So what is counsel? Counsel is the ability to receive instruction, knowledge, and understanding. So our brains are created by God in a way where we can only receive logical or sensical things. So anything that is nonsensical or illogical, our brains will reject automatically. Why? Because God made our brains in such a way where only basic logic will connect.
That's right.
Will fire. So when we hear when we hear don't worship any other images other than God, it makes sense because God made us.
That's right. That's right.
Don't worship a fish because we are not fish. We are people. Don't worship dogs. Don't sleep with animals. Don't commit incest. It makes sense because we are created in a way where sensible things make sense.
Amen.
And
Amen.
illogical or nonsense doesn't make sense.
That's right. That's right.
So when God says keep His law, that makes sense because His law keeps us living. If God's law was not in non-existence, we would have murdered everybody and killed everybody. This world would be completely chaotic.
You went and moved away already.
Right?
Yeah.
Because people would be sleeping with animals, raping each other's families, committing incest, committing adultery would be rampant. If God's law, that's why God gave us the law, so we can live a better life, right? A moral life, a sensible life. So God gave us counsel, a tongue to speak to him, eyes to see. Now, that's not only talking about the physical eyes, that's also spiritual, right? So God gave us spiritual eyes and ears to understand the reality of the spiritual things. Read.
Okay, 72, 7.
Ready? 17?
7.
Is that where we are? Hold on.
Excuse me. Read.
Wait, I got 18.
17.
7.
Say not thou. Right. Wait. Withal. Right, I got it. Hold on. Withal. He filled them with the knowledge of understanding and showed them good and evil.
He showed them what?
Good and evil.
He showed them what?
Good and evil.
So God gave man, our forefather Adam, the knowledge of understanding. Now, knowledge and understanding is different. Knowledge is general things, but understanding is the application of knowledge. So he gave Adam and Eve the knowledge of how good and evil applies to the world.
Right.
So why is it that we know certain things are absolutely wrong? Now, there can be subjective things in the world, but there are at least a few things that are wrong no matter what. Murder is wrong no matter what. Rape is wrong. Incest is wrong no matter what. Adultery is wrong no matter what. Fornication. Idolatry. Right? Moral. So basically, those things that we just named are always wrong no matter what. So we would have no ability of knowing good and evil unless God made us our brains, our minds, with conscience and knowledge, or an applied knowledge, which is understanding of morals, good and evil, and that is where the law comes in. See, you can't have morality without law.
That's right.
Because how can you transgress anything unless there's a law making the thing immoral? Or a better word, unlawful, right? Unlawful. Why? Because it's breaking law. Read.
Okay.
Verse 8.
He set his eyes upon their hearts that he might show them the greatness of his works. He gave them to glory in his marvelous acts forever, that they might declare his works with understanding.
So he gave us all this ability to declare his works with understanding, which is what applied knowledge.
Wow.
Now, let's go into the book, the Pagan Christianity, Dad. Now, I want you all to think about that, right?
So he's actually made a way, a path already for us, Joshua.
Before,
right?
Again, we're going to start about the pastor, right? I'm going to ask my dad, not right in a second, Dad. There's something I forgot that I wanted to read.
The pastor, obstacle to every member function.
Not right.
Wow.
There's something I wanted to read in before. I jumped the gun, brothers and sisters. Hold up. I wanted everyone to y'all to listen to this. Okay? This is Sirach 17.
Yeah, read that, Jeff. I closed my book. Oh, you wanted to read something over? The pastor.
And 29. Sirach 17 and 29 says, listen to this, everybody. This goes along with how great is the loving kindness of the Most High, our power, and his compassion unto such as come to him in holiness. So God has always been long-suffering and kind. The Bible even says, what? That God rejoices not in the death of the wicked. So
Right.
God doesn't get a kick out of people dying. Right?
Especially the wicked.
So, but rather that the wicked turn and repent.
That's right.
Right? So, hold on. For all things cannot be in men, because the sum of man is not immortal. What is better? Okay, hold on. So I just wanted to read that. I just wanted to read that. So the Most High is full of compassion and long suffering, right? So those are also attributes that we possess. Ever wonder why people are patient beyond the point that they should be, or compassionate beyond the point that they should be? Whether you're a believer or you're not, your brains and your minds were created with the capacity to do that. Now, you apparently have obviously learned how to do those things, but your brain was already created and formed by God, right? Formed by the Most High to operate that way. So we're going to start in the book.
That's how the binder breaks. All right, Josh, we want to start that.
The pastor, Dad.
Okay. All right. The pastor, obstacle to every member.
Now, before my dad starts this, the Bible does mention pastor, but the idea of being a pastor has been perverted today.
Mm-hmm.
It was never meant to be a paid profession.
That's right. The pastor, he is the fundamental figure of the Protestant faith. So prevailing is the pastor in the minds of most Christians that he is often better known, more highly praised, and more heavily relied upon than Christ himself. Look at that. Remove the pastor, and most Protestant churches will be thrown into a panic.
Do what?
Be thrown into a panic.
Remove the pastor, and think about it. Being in church like we were, and some of you just coming out of church, if your pastor was not there, you couldn't function.
Wow. Wow. That's so true, Josh.
Read.
Okay.
That's how controlling religion is. Read.
Remove the pastor, and Protestantism as we know it would die. The pastor is the dominating focal point, mainstay, and centerpiece of the contemporary church. He is the embodiment of Protestant Christianity. Wow. So they're worshiping man, Josh, actually. But here is the profound irony. There is not a single verse in the entire New Testament that supports the existence of the modern day pastor.
Now, very key, the modern pastor, the pastor,
The modern pastor.
the pastor is in the New Testament, but the idea of how
Come on,
the modern pastor is not.
that's right.
Read,
He simply did not exist in the early church.
read.
Note that we are using the term pastor throughout the chapter to depict the contemporary pastoral office and role, not the specific individual who fills this role. By and large, those who serve in the office of pastor are wonderful people. They are honorable, decent, and very often gifted Christians who love the Most High and have a zeal to serve his people. But it is the role they fill that both scripture and church history are opposed to.
Mm-hmm.
The pastor is the Bible, right? See that? The word pastor does appear in the New Testament. All he gave some as apostles, and some as prophets, and some as evangelists, and some as pastors and teachers. So pastors and teachers are list, right? The following observations are to be made about this text. This is the only verse in the entire New Testament where the word pastor is used. One solitary verse is a mighty scanty piece of evidence on which to bring the Protestant faith, to hang the Protestant faith. In this regard, there seems to be more biblical authority for snake handling. See Mark 16:18 and Acts 28:6-36. Than there is for the present day pastor. Roman Catholics have made the same error with the word priest. You can find the word priest used in the New Testament 3 times. In every verse, it refers to all Christians. Wow. The word is used in the plural. It is pastors. This is significant. For whoever these pastors are, they are plural in the church, not singular. Consequently, there is no biblical support for the practice of sola pastor, single pastor.
So the whole idea of a single pastor
Is a lie.
Think about it. Paul, Timothy, and Titus were other people other than Paul, right? They were pastors. So Paul was a church planter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now think about it. Paul planted churches. Pastors don't plant churches. Think about that. Modern day pastors are placed in a church already.
Come on.
So that's unscriptural
That's
to
right.
begin with.
That's right.
Scripturally, the pastor himself is supposed to found the church, not be placed somewhere where someone else already was. Think about it.
Well, say that again, John.
Think about it. Modern pastors are placed in a church by a seminary usually or denomination.
So then Paul really had to be a bishop then, more or less.
Yeah.
Or evangelist.
More
Evangelist. No?
Well,
A teacher?
I think more bishop. Because
No.
He mentions the 4 gifts. He's a teacher, a pastor, evangelist, and a right?
Well, yeah, get those
The gifts.
Yeah, gifts.
But his gifts carried him to what he had to do. Right?
Yeah, those weren't offices, those were gifts.
Right.
Those
right,
weren't positions.
Right. In the church.
See,
right. There you go.
Think the way the Hebrews
Yeah,
would have
yeah.
viewed those things.
Yeah.
Even with the positions
got
of
you now.
apostles, prophets, teachers, evangelists, and pastors, those 5 were not positions. They were spiritual operations that everyone's supposed to have.
Everyone's supposed to. Oh, I got it. Okay, John.
So we have to stop thinking
Right.
the way we were conditioned, that
Right.
they're singular people.
Awesome. Okay. The Greek word translated pastors is palmamesis. It means shepherds. Pastor is the Latin
What? Shepherds.
shepherds.
Not shepherd, but shepherds.
Yes. Pastor is the Latin word for shepherd. Pastor, then, is a metaphor to describe a particular function in the church. It is not an office or a title. Wow. See how they put it upon themselves, Mary, to be lifted up?
Mm-hmm.
A first century shepherd had nothing to do with the specialized and professional sense it has come to have.
So Paul and them were not professional preachers like you would see today.
So it had nothing to do with specialized and professional sense it has come to have in contemporary Christianity. Therefore, Ephesians 4:11 does not envision a pastoral office, but merely one of many functions in the church. Shepherds are those who naturally provide nature and care for the Most High sheep. Let's stop there. You're right. Every time you go up to a church, you always think about where the pastor is and how should I act, and like he's God or something.
Mm-hmm.
It is a professional error. Therefore, to confuse shepherds with an office or title, as is commonly conceived today. At best, Ephesians 4:11 is oblique. It offers absolutely no distinction of description of who pastors are. It simply mentions them. Regrettably, we have filled this word with our own Western concept of what a pastor is. That's right.
So
Wow.
based on us being in the West and not in the East,
Come on.
where the Bible was written, our culture has conditioned us to see the spiritual position of a pastor or shepherd as a paid profession, not a position of spirit, but a financial financial gain. Read.
We have read our idea of the contemporary pastor back in the New Testament.
So we have been taught to read the position of a pastor into the Bible.
Wow.
As a profession. These men who were
and they're getting paid, man.
Think about it. These people who followed Christ were not professional ministers. They had jobs.
That's right. Come on.
They didn't live off people.
Come on. Paul too. That's right.
Right? Paul was a tent maker.
He even said it too.
James, John, and Peter were fishermen.
Come on.
So they were part-time ministers. They weren't full-time preachers.
That's right.
They have families.
That's right.
So that's where we got that whole idea in America. So it's completely unscriptural to be a full-time preacher. That's something we have been taught to read into the Bible.
We have read our idea of the contemporary pastor back into the New Testament. Never would any first century Christian have conceived of the contemporary pastoral office. Right?
Yeah.
Richard Hansen observes, for us, the words bishops, presbyterians, and deacons are stored with the associations of merely 2,000 years for the people who first used them. The titles of these offices can have meant little more than inspectors, older men, and helpers. It was when unsuitable theological significance began to be attacked to them that the distortion of the concept of Christian ministry began. Wow.
Read.
First century shepherds were the local elders, presbyterians. and overseers of the church. Their function was at odds with the contemporary pastoral role.
Read.
Where did the pastor come from? If contemporary pastors were absent from the early church, where did they come from? And how did they rise to such a prominent position in the Christian faith? The roots of this tale are tangled and complex, and this is a good book, Josh, and they reach as far back as the fall of man. Wow.
Now think about this. We read, hold on. Hold that, Dad. I'll read this myself.
We'll go as far as you get.
Yeah, we'll read that on the Sabbath.
The birth of one bishop rule is next. Hey, keep
It's
tuning
deep.
in, man. Keep tuning in, viewers.
Expand your mind.
This is getting good. This is getting really good, man.
I want to break this down. Let's use the Bible.
Something, Tony. Have we fooled? How people get fooled? All of us too, we were fooled. We're no different until we come into this understanding. That's why we're on the air, right? To help other people find the truth.
So let me set this context. So if you read Exodus 19, 15 and down, you'll read the account of when God commanded Moses to bring the Israelites to the mountain. Now I'm going to pick this account up in Exodus 20, verse 19. 18. And all the people saw that the thunderings and the lightnings and the noise of the trumpet and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed themselves and stood afar off. So what's the concept here? God descended on a place. Now this is a Hebrew concept. This is not a Western concept. No place, no physical location can contain the Spirit of God.
That's right.
That is a completely Hebraism or a Hebraic concept.
That's right.
So a building is incapable of holding God.
Didn't King Solomon say something like this? In all his glory. Right?
And they said unto Moses, Thou speak thou with us, and we will hear. But let not God speak with us, lest we die. And Moses said unto the people, Fear not, for God is come to prove you, and that his fear may be before you, that you sin not. And the people stood afar off, and Moses drew near unto the thickness of the cloud. So, see, okay, so what's the concept of this? God did not want the people to think that it was all about Moses speaking to them. God wanted to deal individually with the Israelites. So the whole concept of a one person was not even God's will. That was temporal. God wanted to deal with everybody in Israel. Okay? So, hold on. And the people were afraid of God. It wasn't that God didn't want to deal with them. They were afraid of God. It's very clear what the purpose of all that was. Moses said, you know what? He said, you know why you're seeing all this? Is so that you fear God and that you don't sin or break his law that I just gave you. It wasn't to put fear in you not to deal with him. He wants to speak with you individually, so you don't put all the pressure on one person or put an unnecessary spiritual idea on one man, right? God, because so that's actually an anti-modern pastoral scripture, because the whole idea of church, as we just read in the book, is all about one person. Now, that's not what that is not what the Hebrew concept of relationship with God is. Moses wanted the people to deal with God one-on-one.
Absolutely.
God wanted the Israelites to deal with him personally. The people didn't want to deal with him personally. Why?
They wanted Moses
because
to talk
they
to him.
were afraid of him.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because they were used to idols. They weren't used to a personal being that could relate to them and deal with them. And that's man's problem. Man doesn't want to be dealt with by God.
Wow.
That's why we create ideas in our head to push them out of our mind, because we don't want to deal with a God who has laws and commandments and expectations of us.
Awesome.
We want to live the way we want to live.
Mm-hmm.
Read?
That's true.
Is that good?
Yeah, it's real good, brother. With the fall came an implicit desire in people.
Implicit desire in people.
To have a physical leader.
Wait. Implicit desire in people to what?
Have a physical leader.
Now,
to
remember,
bring them to the Most
stop. Remember what we just read in Exodus. I just read in Exodus. God did not want the, listen how this is a revelation. God did not want the Israelites to attach unnecessary spiritual power to Moses. So what did he do? He had Moses bring the Israelites to Mount Sinai, so he could deal with them individually. But the people said,
Mm-hmm.
no, we want you to do it.
Mm-hmm.
We want you to be the focal point.
Wow.
So it wasn't God or Moses that wanted. Moses didn't even want to be the focal point.
Nope, that's right. Excuse me.
Right? Because Moses wasn't even a focal point. The Most High used Moses to perform those miracles, the splitting of the rock, the manna, all the miracles he did, even the Red Sea, even the splitting of the Red Sea. God was doing all this. Read.
Okay. With the fall of man, an implicit desire in people to have a physical leader to bring them to the Most High. For this reason, human societies throughout history have consistently created a special case of reserved, right, religious leaders. The medicine man, the shaman, and the shaman, and the rapidist, the miracle worker and witch doctor, the sorcerer, the wise man, and the priest have all been with us since Adam's blunder.
Read.
And this person is always marked by special training.
Special what?
Special training. Special garb.
Clothing.
Yeah.
Special garb.
Mm-hmm.
Listen. Read.
What's this? A special vocabulary.
Orientation. We read about that in chapter 4.
And a special way of life.
Read.
We can see this instinct rear its ugly head in the history of ancient Israel. It made its first appearance during the time of Moses. Two servants of the Most High, Eldab, and Medab, received a higher spirit and began to prophesy. In hasty response, a young zealot urged Moses to restrain them. Numbers 11, 26, 28. Moses.
Now, and we've read this. Moses, read.
Moses reproved the younger.
He rebuked him.
The younger supporter, suppressor, saying he wished all of Ahayah's people.
He wished all. Wait, just him.
He wished all of Ahayah's.
So it was always the will of God that his ruach would be on everybody, just not one man.
Would prophesy.
Let that idea get in your head.
Moses had set himself against a clerical spirit and had
a what? He set himself against a what?
A critical spirit.
Clerical.
Clerical, I
or
said it right.
Clergy. So
Yeah,
that whole
thing,
idea
clerical.
of a that whole idea, listen.
I know. Listen.
Brothers and sisters, that whole idea of a clergy is spirit. It's a demonic spirit. It's evil.
Come on, Josh. Spirit that had tried to control the Most High's people. Wow. And that's why they're controlled today, Josh.
Read.
We see it again when Moses ascended Mount Horeb. The people wanted Moses to be a physical mediator between them and the Most High because they feared a personal relationship with the Almighty. Wow. That's why they don't have a personal relationship with the Christian church, Josh. You understand now, Tony?
And we just read that,
and they
right?
claim they have a personal relationship, Tony.
So when Moses ascended the mount, we just read that in Exodus 20:19 through 20 and on. Moses did not want to be the sole person controlling the Israelites. God wanted to speak through Moses to everybody.
Come on.
Read.
They feared a personal relationship with the Almighty. Exodus 20:19. The fallen instinct made another appearance during the time of Samuel. The Most High wanted his people to live under his direct headship, but Israel clamored for a human king instead. 1 Samuel 8:19.
So Israel clamored for a king, and we read that a couple of times in 1 Samuel 8, right?
Sure.
I'll just summarize it.
Go ahead.
So what happened was Samuel was getting old, and his two sons were not ruling the people correctly. They weren't keeping the commandments, right? So the elders of Israel came to the prophet Samuel again. There's no more prophets in that sense today, right? Okay, so God came to the prophet Samuel. The people came to Samuel and said, your sons aren't doing what God says. They're not keeping his laws, not teaching people that are getting paid behind the scene. And we want a king to be like the other nations, right? And basically Samuel will say, why do you want a king when God is your king? Read it for yourself. Read.
Theocrates who loved to have their preeminence in the church. The seeds of the contemporary pastor can even be detected in the New Testament. In the church, illegitimately took control of its affairs. 3 John 9:10. In addition, some scholars have suggested that the doctrine of the Nicolaitans that Jesus condemns in Revelation 2:6 is a reference to the rise of an early clergy. Wow. Wow. That's why he said he hates them. Alongside humanity's fallen quest for a human spiritual mediator is the obsession with the heretical form of leadership. Heretical, that's what I said. All ancient cultures were heretical in their social structures to one degree or another. Wow. Regrettably, the post-traumatic Christians adapted these structures into their church life, as well as we shall see. Wow. What's next? You should tell them what's next.
So we're going to be in
Keep listening. This is going to get really good. It's good, this book, man. You want to find out where you are on Sunday? Get the book. You're going to see it. I think the main point of the book is the Most High is moving. He's not in a building. He's not in a place where you have to worship the building. And these people have took it upon themselves to lift themselves up. So you have to pay them. Who said you can't serve the Most High in money? Yashayah himself said that, right? So if that's not good enough for you, then don't even bother reading the Bible. Either you'll hate the one and love the other. Either you'll hold to the one or you'll despise the other. You can't serve the Most High in money.
So
can we work? Yeah. Can we make a living? That's not what he's saying.
We're going to talk about next the birth of the one bishop rule.
All right. Where is that, Josh?
In the book.
No, I know that. Show me on the dark outline there. The title. Let me see the title. What was this say?
The birth of the one bishop rule.
The birth of the one bishop rule. Oh, right. These Christian churches, they have a bishop, right? But they appoint like one for like 10 churches or 6 churches, right? Huh. Well, then Paul never called himself a bishop, right? Paul was an evangelist, a teacher, and that were gifts. They weren't paid professional duties.
Exactly.
Because Paul took no money from no one. None of the disciples took money.
So, and as we see from what we read in Exodus, that right, from what we read in Exodus, we understand that God wanted to deal personally with the Israelites, right? God didn't want them to develop a clerical spirit where they became enslaved to one person, or basically a king, like Pharaoh was, right? He wanted to deal with them individually, like he dealt with Adam individually and Eve, right? God has always desired to build us to deal with man one-on-one. The problem is because we live in a world that teaches us immorality and sin, we start putting roadblocks in our mind and physical roadblocks in front of us. And the paid professional pastor is the biggest roadblock to the growth of people.
Wow. Did you hear that? So you think you're learning when you go to a Christian church? You're not learning nothing. If you think back, hold on, every Sunday, you think back, right, guys? Listen, viewers, you think back, take some puffs. You think back, go back a month. I bet this Sunday they'll almost be talking about the same thing again. It'll be the same drip. You won't be learning nothing.
So get this revelation, right? Here,
I hope I said that
he
right.
That hath an ear, let him hear.
That's right. What the Spirit.
The way you treat your pastor is in scriptural.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the way you treat the pastor.
Have parties for him, birthdays.
You honor him more than you honor you respect him more than you do yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Some people treat the pastor better than they treat their own families.
Wow, how true.
Some women in the church treat the pastor much better than they treat their own husbands.
How true.
Most women will never talk to the pastor like they do their husband. Think about it.
Wow. You're right. You're correct.
In every essence, you treat your pastor as if he's not a person. And we're going to discover the origin of that clerical spirit on the Sabbath.
It's almost, I just want to throw a little bone out there to you. I just want to throw this out there. It's really, this is true. It's almost like they're worshiping him as God. Almost. It's very close, right? It's close. The Most High warned Israel. He says, no, I want to be your leader. I want to talk to you, right, Josh? I want to lead you.
Who told you to put a king over you?
Yeah. Didn't Saul too. Go all through the Bible. It's all through the Bible. Why we're saying this? Because the Hebrews are in Christianity and they're being lied to. All the tribes are in Christianity, being lied to today.
So we learned today. We're slowly starting to get a picture of how the Western world has corrupted the idea of biblical pastor being a big. What is a biblical pastor? We learned that. See, and that's why religion, Christianity, doesn't make sense. Think about it.
That's right.
Why do you feel like what you do makes no sense in the Christian church? Because our minds, although we weren't taught exactly the way we should be taught biblically, when you start doing certain things in the church, it doesn't make sense. Like, now they try to make it make sense, but if you step back and just think about it slightly, it starts not making sense, because if you read the Bible, you won't discover those things in the Bible.
All praises.
But because you have been conditioned to be comfortable in the church, your family's there, your friends are there, you've developed a personal spirit attachment. You don't feel bold enough to step out.
That's right.
And be independent,
and say
which
something.
is again a controlling spirit. Your life is essentially dependent on a physical institution to instruct you about a spiritual book. No, let me say that again. The way you act and treat the pastor and the church shows you that you have been conditioned to treat a physical institution as if it has authority over a spiritual book, which is the Bible.
Wow.
So it's all control when you break it down. That's why people are falling out of their attachment to the Christian religion. That's why Christianity is dwindling in the West.
Sure is. The foundations of Christianity are shaken now.
And it's unstoppable because people are starting to figure out this doesn't make sense.
That's right.
So we hope that was encouraging and you learned something. Pass this on, pass this understanding on, right? Shalom.
Shalom.